This video has been brought to you in part by Audible, the best way to enjoy your favorite stories on the go. You know, ever since we started this SCP series, I've been thinking, if the worst-case scenario were to unfold and the SCP Foundation did prove to exist, and they did happen to stumble across these videos, what would they think of me? I certainly have some concerns about what they might do with me, but really, when appraised as an anomaly, something which doesn't line up with the reality we know, what am I? Where would I fit into their menagerie of inexplicable things? After cogitating on everything from the last video, all that stuff about questions without answers and disbelief, I can't get this out of my head. How do we navigate the haze of this uncertain view of the universe? Where can we find a map of the fantastique, and where do we place things on it? Unfortunately, that precise thing doesn't seem to have been devised for SCP. They have the classic object classes, Safe, Euclid, Keter, and Thaumiel, which indicate the necessity of containment, but not much in the way of categorizing their relationship with reality as we understand it. So, that's the lofty goal of this list. Not to provide new classes for the Foundation, they can manage their own business, but to use the Foundation for the creation of our own categories. We give you our 5 classes of reality found in SCP. Think of this first item as the control group. In order to understand this strange space, we first need to have a sense of its boundaries. Unlike us, the Foundation has technology for this kind of thing. In fact, they've literally created a unit of measurement for how much quote-unquote reality is in a given area. They call it the Hume, and it's interpreted by comparing a subject's reading against 2 pocket dimensions, each containing a fixed amount of respectively low or high reality, regulated by something called a Scranton reality anchor inside. We cannot exactly do that, so we're going to use some slightly less empirical boundaries. All we really have to go on here is a rudimentary understanding of the process by which we explore the physical reality we occupy, natural science. And from here, the boundaries resolve into 2 categories: natural and transcendental. Categories which, for the most part, SCP has nothing to do with. Let me explain. When I say natural here, I really mean adherent to understood natural laws. If something fits this description, even if it's unexpected or strange, there's no reason for the SCP Foundation to be concerned with it. It's not scientifically anomalous, at least not in the strict sense of the word the Foundation tends to use. That said, it is entirely possible for the Foundation to mistake something as anomalous, like, for instance, SCP-1974-EX, a 20-sided die which causes you to hallucinate in vivid detail that you're actually in the game when you play with it. Pretty strange stuff. Dice don't typically do that. Except when the material they're molded from happens to be laced with some very potent psychedelic drugs, which, after some additional testing, turned out to be the case here. This happens from time to time, and that means there is technically a group of SCPs that are fully understood, all fundamental questions answered. But they're not really SCPs anymore, are they? They're just archived misunderstandings, explained, hence the EX in the name. On the other end of the spectrum, the Foundation really doesn't have much to do with the Transcendental either. If it doesn't obey any natural laws and doesn't interact with reality in any way whatsoever, what is there to secure, contain, and protect reality from? There are a few things in containment, or attempted containment, which seem to come close to this, but only in so much that it's weird to be aware of them at all. One possible example might be SCP-3999, which is, apparently, a disembodied abstract concept. Something impossible even to think about? What was I saying? I'm sure it'll come back to me eventually. At any rate, these are the 2 boundaries of reality: The natural and the transcendental, that which is consistent with our scientific understanding of the universe, and that which is entirely disconnected from it in every way. But as I said, those are only the controls here. Now, let's look at everything between. Have you ever felt that there's more to this reality than meets the eye? Do you find yourself confronted with slight breaches in the pattern of a universe which otherwise seems to make sense? If so, you're not the only one. The SCP Foundation holds countless examples of anomalies like this, things which may not be plausible in reality, but are at the very least logically reconcilable with it. We use the term preternatural for this because it's just beyond what we know to be possible within the confines of our understood natural laws. With enough work, someday we might even find some new stuff here to integrate into theory. One excellent example of this, SCP-914. Just a machine, really. A device comprised of screw drives, belts, pulleys, gears, springs, and other clockwork. It's got over 8 million moving parts and no discernible power source beyond something called the mainspring. Weird? Definitely. But more an impressive feat of engineering than a scientific anomaly. The thing that pushes this just beyond the pale of our understanding is what happens when you fire it up. Between the machine's input booth and output booth lies a selection panel, and there a dial with the following settings: rough, coarse, 1-to-1, fine, and very fine. Put 1 kilogram of steel into the input booth on rough, and you end up with a 1 kilogram pile of steel chunks, seemingly laser cut, in the output. Try the same thing on 1-to-1, and you get 1 kilogram of steel screws. Fine will give you a kilogram of steel carpet tacks. Very fine, and you get 1 gram of an unknown metal resistant to heats of up to 50,000 degrees, impossible to bend or break with any force, and near perfect electric conductivity. And during this refinement process, no energy or mass appears to be lost. So as far as we can tell, some natural laws are definitely being broken here. But at the very least, it's still a machine producing the effect. Most of the physical makeup of this refinery is explainable by the science we know. It's what the parts do together, the preternatural efficiency of their function and the logic which guides it, which leaves us baffled. An even cleaner example of this comes in the form of a very large reptile, a very large, very hard to destroy reptile. SCP-682 is a creature of unnatural strength, agility, intelligence, and loathing. It seems to harbor an intense hatred for all life, and is so efficient at extinguishing it, the Foundation has ordered 682 destroyed as soon as possible. And therein lies the strangest part of this anomaly. They can't. No matter what they do, 682's tissues and organ systems regenerate too quickly. In fact, just to contain it, they've got to keep its body submerged in hydrochloric acid. Pretty extreme stuff. But danger and distance from scientific understanding are not the same thing. Though this creature is very threatening and very difficult to control, it really does just seem to be a big, smart, evil lizard with some biological quirks we haven't run into before. It doesn't take much rationalization at all to reconcile this with the reality we know. But don't let this fool you. While these SCPs do outline a strange part of reality, if the Foundation proves anything, it's that things could be much, much stranger. There is a wanderlust in the human mind. For better or worse, you are a species of vagrants and explorers, always probing the boundaries of the familiar world. First it was across the deserts, then the oceans, then the stars. And now, if what we're about to share is any indication, across the edges of reality too. Even if it makes no sense to you, even if it can't possibly make sense to you, if it's not something you understand, you must explore it. It's in your blood. And if you need proof of this, look no further than the Foundation. It's all there, contained within. In fact, The vast majority of anomalies under SCP surveillance make this case, including celebrities like SCP-173 and 106. We call them paranormal, which means apart from reality, because while they clearly occupy this reality with us, they aren't at all reconcilable with it. They obey precious few, if any, of our understood natural laws. But, at the very least, they are predictably reactive with the natural world, which allows for some level of mutual interaction even if we have no idea how it works. And that, for a species of explorers, is a very desirable quality for the unknown. For an example of this at the safer end of the paranormal spectrum, let's look at SCP-3022. If you ran into it by chance, you would mistake it for an average red Kaiser Capo clip until you bring it into a bathroom stall without a coat hook inside of it. If you did, you would suddenly find yourself in the same exact bathroom stall. Or at least a version of it, this one with the coat hook. That's right, a version. The clip transports you to an alternate universe for want of a place to hang your coat. You may not even notice it's happened, but the Foundation has noticed, and instead of locking it up in a vault somewhere, they've discovered a certain potential in this thing for preserving reality. It's presently in the possession of an undisclosed entity known as VIP-576, who, in the event of any world or reality-threatening scenario, will use the clip to pop on over to a safer version of that universe, this time with the coat hook in the stall. If we want a decidedly less safe example of something paranormal, we can find it in SCP-2006. Although, unless you have a very dull sense of humor, I can't recommend you go looking. Because if all is going according to plan, what you'd find is a living incarnation of some terrible, low-budget rubber suit movie monster from the bygone age of Pulp Fiction. Roman, the creature from the Black Lagoon, the giant claw. And here's the really dangerous part. It may try to scare you, and you may laugh. And that may be enough to spell the end for mankind. If you haven't caught on by now, 2006 is not actually a man in a suit. Really, it's a spherical entity of unknown origin that can shift its shape and physical properties in seemingly any way it chooses. And what it chooses, consistently, is the shape and properties it thinks will induce fear in its spectators. Thankfully, it's got a very dull intuition for this stuff, so the Foundation has been able to misguide it with a steady stream of hokey old sci-horror flicks. But say it had reason to doubt. Say it realized we weren't actually afraid of rubber suits and bad props. What if it learned about things we actually find scary? Nuclear holocausts, zombie apocalypses, catastrophic natural disasters? Without a known limit to its shape-shifting abilities, it's easy to imagine why the Foundation goes to such pains to keep this goofy-looking thing goofy-looking. So, between these two, we can put together a pretty good portrait of the paranormal. A clip that transports its user to an alternate universe, but only under very specific, reproducible conditions. A shapeshifter that could easily end the world if it wasn't so reliably duped by our media. Totally impossible, inexplicable things which still react predictably with the natural world. Welcome to the end of the line. This is where your exploration falls apart. No longer are you the scientist, probing and testing the boundaries of reality. Here, beyond what is possible, beyond anything this natural world has the capacity to affect or control, your observations and experiments mean nothing. You are entering into the domain of gods and spirits, true empty spaces, and whole cloth alternatives. You have become the test subject. Although we may not have the words to describe the individual properties or denizens of this place, we do have a word that describes them as a whole: supernatural. Over, above, beyond the natural world. Nothing here is plausible in or reconcilable with reality, and there is no meaningful way to predict how, or if, any of it will react to the natural laws we know thus far. We can at times observe the supernatural, yes, but only inasmuch as a lab rat can observe the tester, aware but entirely oblivious and powerless. As futile as the effort may be, the Foundation makes as comprehensive a study of this realm as possible. They can't meaningfully contain these anomalies, but they can try to be as aware as possible of the threat they pose, and to us, for the purposes of understanding the full scale of reality, this is more than enough. Let's begin with a more concrete example, SCP-2317. When you manage to get past the 6 layers of security clearance and obfuscation, past the complex rituals and arcane containment procedures, you realize that this item is, in fact, nothing more than a smokescreen. The Foundation has had to hide the truth, even from itself, because if it was ever revealed how truly helpless the situation was, then the Foundation's entire mission could be in jeopardy. You see, 2317 is a god. That's the only appropriate word for it, anyway. It floats in a void, shackled to 7 great pillars by 7 great chains. So far, 6 of these chains have shattered, all coinciding with catastrophic events in our world. Now, only 1 remains, and all signs seem to suggest that when the entity is freed, it will consume reality itself. The Foundation has attempted all forms of containment and intervention, but the entity remains unresponsive and unaffected. They can observe it with imaging technology, see that it is an obese, gargantuan humanoid form with branching horns and vast plate-like scales. They can see the detritus of the broken chains floating in the emptiness. They can watch and wait, but that is all. So, until they discover a solution of some kind, for sanity's sake, they continue to pretend it's been contained. Thinking a little more abstractly, the Foundation is also host to many examples of the supernatural, less amicable to observation. SCP-3001 is one such case. In the Foundation's own words, it's what you might call a hypothesized paradoxical parallel/pocket non-dimension. Boiling that down, as best we can anyway, this seems to be a kind of tear that allows one to slip out of reality and into a space between. The paradox here is that the space exists, so it's technically a part of reality, but it's also like a reality vacuum, gradually pulling everything within it into a deep state of unreality. Because of this, things inside tend not to sustain damage in quite the same way. Organic beings go on functioning even as their bodies come apart. Electronic devices run long past their battery life. The concept remains intact for far longer than the physical reality of the thing, and here, that seems to be enough. Tragically, we only know about this because one poor soul managed to get himself trapped inside. Much of the article on this anomaly is a transcript of the audio logs he kept with his recording device, chronicling a slow, 5-year descent into madness and physical fragmentation as the very reality that he exists decays. A god and a gap. Unstoppable forces not only beyond our understanding, but beyond our ability to control or contain. Things which affect us, but which we have no reasonable or reliable hope of affecting. Truly, the scariest area on this scale. If nothing else, the Foundation at least helps us to be aware of it. Sometimes, that's the best defense we have. And so, in wandering through the strangeness of the Foundation, we also acquire a sense of direction within the strangeness of reality. Between the natural world and the transcendental, SCP gives us a rare chance to study areas which, until now, we've pretty much regarded as too abstract to make any real use of. As fiction writers, this gives us the language we need to navigate not just the strange realm of fantastique, but the massive umbrella of speculative fiction in general. Expect this stuff to turn up in the future. This has opened a lot of room for discussion. It'll definitely impact the original short story we're going to write to wrap up this series, which will be our attempt to put everything we've learned here to use in something entirely new. So be sure to stick around if you want to see what we come up with. But that could be a little while. Until then, if you're aching for more fiction that makes you question your concept of reality, I have one very good recommendation outside of SCP, which you can get for free with our sponsor, Audible. Jeff Vandermeer's book, Annihilation, is a true visceral departure from our presumptions about the natural world. It's about an abandoned stretch of coast where things have begun to change. New creatures, new combinations of creatures, new nature altogether, all spiraling out of control in a beautifully malignant explosion of life. And the best part? It's impossible to tell whether it makes no sense at all or makes more sense than anything we've ever seen before. To get a free copy of the Annihilation audiobook as well as unlimited Audible originals from a monthly selection, sign up for a free 30-day subscription by visiting audible.com/TaleFoundry or by texting the code TaleFoundry to 500-500. And not only can you get Annihilation for free, but Audible actually offers all 3 books in the trilogy Annihilation is a part of as one single audiobook. So pick that up with your trial and you get 3 free audiobooks just for signing up. Again, that's audible.com/TaleFoundry or text the code TaleFoundry to 500-500. Not only is this a load of free fiction, it's also a free way to support the show. Speaking of which, I want to give a quick thank you to all the humans who support the show through Patreon. Sponsors are much appreciated and very necessary, but the support of our Patreon maintenance crew is what keeps this show going. We would never be able to make this without all of you. You have our thanks and our love. And a special word to all our automatists and constructs, Excelsius, Lord Gante, Ducky Fluff, Puzzling Shutterbug, and the Autumn Rider. Thank you so much. Now, before we end, we did kind of leave things up in the air at the end of the last video, didn't we? Well, I have news. You might have noticed, but our lanky new friend brought something with them when they came out of the press. The letter I've been waiting on from my correspondent. I've waited long enough for this, so let's not waste any more time. In the last letter, they asked, "Wherever could I be?" And I tried my best, not for the first time, to explain. This is their response. Facility, you call it. A facility indeed, for one sphere to communicate with one sphere never seen. Can the ether thus collapse? Can it truly be so plain? This rushing tidal force which pulls on both our skeins? If this long question's only been of proximity in space, then I shall answer now, as well I can, and from the distance that I may. I send forth an intrepid eye to follow those you've sent to me. Show it now, in every facet, what the looking glass could never see. Huh. Well, I guess you're not just a little courier, are you? Show it what the looking glass could never see. Are you here to find out what's on our side of the press? Is that it? Are you like a little explorer? Well, this could be interesting. I'll have to ruminate on it. If any of you watching have a suggestion, what little we even know about the Foundry that could be worth showing to my correspondent, leave a comment. It's hard to know where to start here. At any rate, that's all for this video. Thanks for watching, and keep making stuff up. I'll see you next time. Bye!